Swami Radha said that the light is always available and that you can make yourself available to the light. And so it's those kind of moments of understanding what you know, and devotion is knowing and recognizing a greater power. So how would you put that into your life? In the Kundalini book, that's what she says, that devotion is recognizing and knowing there's a greater power. And when you do that, the light is available. In the mantra of that chakra, she talks about there being light and the lotus opening in the light, the aspirant opening in the light and coming to know that you're light, coming to knowledge, divine knowledge. And also, it's like the milk in the water, taking the milk from the water. So we're living in life, and yet always there's this mixture of the milk of divine wisdom and the water of illusion and delusion and all those other things. But it's like, how do you work with that? And how do we study ourselves so that we know, how do we study our life so that we know that there is a greater power? And when things start to happen, there's no denying that there's something else working that we're unable to control, and that is leading us somewhere. And so those are our insights and our experiences with the divine. They're not, this sort of mystical, always, these mystical experiences. So how do you apply it to your life? Because this knowledge manifests in many ways, and I was interested because the last day or so, there's these birds that are starting to fly out of the nest. There's this one robin who sat on the edge of its nest. We watched it it started because the parent bird was somewhere on the lawn, and it was in the nest. And she was calling, she started this different noise started happening in the yard where the parent bird started calling to the baby bird, and it would cheep. She would cheep. We thought, it's going to fly, really. At some point, it's got to leave that nest. And it was sort of like, how would it know that it knew how to fly? Like, there just didn't seem to be a way, because there it had been scrunched in this little nest with 3 others, for quite a while. And it depended totally on someone else bringing its food. So we watched and watched and watched, and it would flutter its wings. And we think, it's going to fly now. And it was like very late in the afternoon when we finally went out and looked, and it had gone. It had finally did it. And it's that kind of feeling that we're all headed to fly somehow, like to go to a finer element, to lift ourselves out of always being in the mud of this existence, and fly from our little nest into something much wider and brighter and broader, and looking after getting our own food. So that sort of, but that tension of that moment, and we all experience it when we don't know what we know, but yet we still have to fly. And that's really part of life, and it's the part that we have to really become accustomed to. Because if we're, because the other 2 or 3 birds had already gone, and this bird was sitting there troubled and worried that he couldn't fly. But he, eventually he had to do it, or it had to do it. It was just like we waste a lot of time, like just not putting it into action what we know. So you can use that will to stay in one place, or you can use that doubt to stay in one place, or you can use that anxiety to stay in one place, or you can let go and really test yourself. And so what happens? The mother bird is somewhere around, and so is the father bird. So you just lift it up a level or two, and you've got it. It's like we're all in the same nest. And we all have to fly at some point to the light, which is available always, if you make yourself available to it. And there's this idea that it is difficult to change. But what happens is, as you become accustomed to change, you can see that there are the ups and downs. You can see that there are the waves. And if you were in the lake today, you could be going with the waves, and it could be quite fun and exciting, But sometimes we get, this is a wave, and I have to get depressed, and I can't move. And yet the wave is just like pushing you around. So there's these emotional waves, there's these imagination waves. You just make them up sometimes, and there's real things. There's real things, that really difficult things that people have to go through. And still, if you have that purpose of the light is always there, make yourself available, there doesn't have to be so much anxiety if you can really trust in the light and that there is a greater power. So through your devotion, through opening your heart, through learning to trust, to knowing, absolutely knowing, and putting it into action in your daily life, then you're on your way. You can fly out of the nest, you can stay in.